And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today, we are talking about a 6th or a 7th round gem at the wide receiver position. We're going to be talking about Da'Quan Felton and how the Washington Commanders have also had a workout with him. And so we're going to be talking about him as an NFL draft prospect. And so before we go ahead and jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, just like Jaden Daniels is going to be hitting lots of receivers for many touchdowns this upcoming season. And so in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. So make sure you hit that subscribe, you hit the like, you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. We're talking some more NFL draft prospects as the NFL draft is set to take off here coming up Thursday. And so this comes from an SB Nation article, and it talks about the visits that the Washington Commanders have had, and it also talks about the private workouts as well. And so just looking at this list, looking at some of the players that the Washington Commanders have had a private workout with, I was really interested in Da'Quan Felton, and so that is the player that we're going to take a look at today. And Da'Quan Felton, very interesting because the first thing that I do like about him is that he is a tall wide receiver. He is 6'5", 216. And look, man, when I looked at his highlight tapes, he was the big play threat for Virginia Tech. I think that there's several times that you see in his touchdown catches, they are going deep to him. And he certainly seems like he's going to be a player that would be utilized in an offense to take the top off of a defense. And so that is point number one. He has big play potential. And so next up, I think the next thing that I liked about some of the things that I saw with him is his ability to really do some other routes. I think that he can be something other than just going deep down the field. I think that there were times where he was catching curls. He looked fine in that. He looked fine in the out routes, and he also looked very good in the bubble screens, which I think that that's something that you see a lot of with Cliff Kingsbury, and I think you're going to see a lot of that coming into next season, especially with Deebo Samuel. You're looking at a player that you can throw out there, and you can throw some screens to him. And look, with that tall body, I think that he's able to maybe give, that cornerback a move, or at least give them a bit of physicality with a stiff arm and then maybe get some yards that way. So I think he could be a plus in the screen game. And then next up, I think the fact that because he does have the big frame as a pass catcher, I know he doesn't necessarily show the best hands on tape, or at least the highlights, because he doesn't necessarily pluck the ball out of the air, which is one of the things that they talk about on his NFL.com profile. Is just that he's a player that he makes a lot of the body catches. And so he goes up and then he's going to let the ball get to him and kind of relies on his frame to kind of box out defenders. And so I think maybe if you're looking to utilize that in the red zone, I think that that can be a plus there because of his height. I think you can utilize that. And then you're talking about Jaden Daniels and the way that he throws an accurate football. Look, he's going to throw this guy open if the Washington Commanders were to go get him. Now, in this NFL.com draft profile, they have him down as a 6th or a 7th round pick. Some of the measurables that he had at the NFL draft combine, he did everything there. He had a 4.5 40, not bad. He has a 32.5 vertical jump. He has a 10.5 broad jump. He had a 7.1 in the cone drill, and then he was a 4.3 in the 20-yard shuttle, and then he did 16 reps on the bench. And so not bad. I like the fact that he did everything in the combine. Some of the other things that they did talk about that was a plus with him is he has the ability to overtake defenders in deep throws, which I think that is something that definitely I saw in his highlights, just his ability to somehow get in good position over the cornerback. Like, it's not anything that looks blazing speed like, but it's just terrific football speed. He's one of those guys that when he puts on the pads, suddenly he just gets faster. And so I do like that. And then I like the fact that, look, with the smaller corners and things like that, he's going to be extremely hard to guard that way. So I think he's going to be able to take advantage over corners. If you have to, throw a slightly high ball, I think that he's a guy that can win there. And I kind of get kind of the feeling of like a Dez Bryant type of player. So remember Dez Bryant that used to play for the Cowboys, and the ability to just kind of use his frame to kind of make catches and just make plays down the field. So it wasn't necessarily elite kind of speed, but just the ability to kind of use, that height and that kind of athleticism to be really a menace to the secondary. And so I think that he has that certainly kind of written on him there. And then when you look at the production, I think that this is definitely why you would see him go in the later rounds. And he had an okay start to his career, 28 receptions, 492 yards, 17.6 average, and 2 touchdowns. Then the next season, he had 39 receptions, 573 yards, 14.7, and 7 touchdowns. But then he had a really productive season with Virginia Tech in 2023, where he transferred there. He had 38 receptions, 667 yards, and the average was at 17.6 with 8 touchdowns. And so that was his best touchdown season. And 84 was his second longest reception. He had a 90-yard reception with the Spartans the year before. But then in 2024, the production certainly dipped off. I mean, he had 32 receptions, 360 yards, 11.3 was his average, and only 2 touchdowns, and 55 was his longest. And so the productivity, it took a major dip in the last year. But like I said before, I think that if you are picking him up, if the Washington Commanders were interested in getting him, I think he's a player that, if he does develop into an every down type of player, I think that you've certainly got to steal that way. But I think that you're getting this player to maybe be, one of those guys that you throw in rotationally. I think that, yes, you throw him out there. If you want to go big play down the field, maybe you throw him in there for a change in pace. To run some of the screens and stuff like that. One of the plays that I saw where he was kind of coming across in motion, and they ran like a screen that way. So I could definitely see, Cliff Kingsbury kind of opening up the offense and maybe kind of doing a little bit of the trick stuff with him. I also saw one of his touchdowns. It was on a halfback pass. And so that suggests that, maybe he would be a guy that's a specialist that you have out there for maybe some of your specialist type of packages. So, I think it would be interesting. He does bring some size to the wide receiving room, but I think that certainly has probably a long way to go that way as far as being an every down type of player. But you never know. Like I said before, I think that when you look at the NFL draft, we're going to see this just every year in the NFL draft, or really any draft. You see players that were taken in the later rounds, and they somehow become better than the players that were taken in the early rounds. You never know, what a player is going to do once they get into your building, the work ethic, and just what they're trying to do to achieve that goal. And so we know that, look, this Washington Commanders team, you get in this building supercharged with the work ethic, and it seems like everybody's trying to excel. And so maybe Da'Quan Felton, we hear his name called in the 6th or 7th round, and we think, okay, he's just a big play threat, but he becomes an every down type of wide receiver. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. Again, the Washington Commanders, I guess, did go ahead and work him out. These are a couple other players that we are definitely going to be talking about very soon. These were players that did a private workout. Once again, Da'Quan Felton, wide receiver, big play wide receiver for Virginia Tech. If you want to take a look at that, that's in SB Nation under Washington Commanders 2025 NFL Draft, pre-draft meeting, and visit tracker. So make sure you hit that like, you hit the subscribe, and as we always say, go Commanders, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.